All right. So I am Monica Corrie, and today we're going to talk about simplifying the design process, making decisions faster than before, aka live design. So we have a few learning objectives that I want to talk to you about, and that is first off, what is live design? Why we use live design, when to use live design, and how to facilitate a successful live design session. So that's going to be what we're covering today. And just a little bit about me. Who am I? I am an architectural product specialist and I work at Haworth, located in Holland, Michigan. I've held a couple different roles over the past few years, designer, teacher, mentor, mother, especially. As you can see, I have a pretty busy life here. I've got a toddler who is about to turn 2, and I've got 4 pets. They also keep me very busy. We like to spend time outdoors and traveling and camping. And yeah, that's just a little bit about me and my background. So let's get into this. What is live design? So live design is meeting with your client, whether it's in person or virtually, and sharing your screen as you walk them through the space that they're envisioning. Live design allows your client to visually see the space and make changes with you while you're on the call working together. And that's really important because not a lot of clients can visualize their space. So you being able to share that with them is super helpful. When your client can see the space in 3D, they often have a better understanding of the space and can help make decisions faster. So this is an example of a live design session, and this is sped up for you guys so you don't have to watch a very long video, but it just gives you an idea of the amount of things that can be done, from having a blank canvas to putting together some kind of contextualized space and making the changes with the client while you're on the call. And you can share things with them and be like, hey, this material doesn't work, or this does, and this would look great here, or let's make an opening here. So this just was one way to do a live design using a product in that space. And then you can see how it just comes from practically nothing to creating a space, and it becomes usable. The nice thing about live design is that it gives you an opportunity to be face to face with your client, and you can understand their needs a little bit better. And when you're with them on the call talking to them, you can be like, does this work for what you have? Are you using existing furniture? You can talk about the building and the base plan and what's going on with it and what they need for their space. In most cases with live design sessions, we do suggest having some things up front, like a CAD plan, to give you a starter. But if you're working product only and they're just trying to work through some typicals, starting from scratch is totally fair too. So in this case, there was no base plan involved, and it was just a product unit that they were trying to typicalize on. All right. So why use live design? Because it allows you to go from sketch to spec, just like that. This is an example here. You can see somebody put a sketch together of what they wanted out of a unit in a space, and we were able to take that and create a whole space for them using multiple live design sessions. Live design using CT allows you to collaborate with your customers, but then it also lets you get the cost for the project pretty much immediately. As long as there's no tailored solutions involved, your design is finished and you can have a specification list for them to order the product that they need. Sorry, skipped a slide there. So why use live design? Well, one, it eliminates a lot of back and forth emails and reduces the risk for misunderstanding when you're doing your design. When you're on the call with them, you can ask them questions about their space. You can find out what they are looking for, and it allows the clients to feel like they're part of the design process as they see their vision come to life. The immediate feedback that you get from live design also reduces the amount of time you spend on your project. And then we want to talk a little bit about when to use live design. Live design can and should be used at many points in your project, from product selection, material selection, a visualization up front, in your programming, offering alternatives, You should be using it at many different phases from bid to build. They give you chances to be face-to-face with the client, make sure they understand what they're getting, and just give you that collaboration. So let's talk a little bit about the how. When we're going to get started with live design, we need to make sure that we include key players in the design decision making in your sessions. So make sure that you invite the right people to your meeting. And then the next thing you want to make sure you do is you want to make sure you clean up your drawing before attending the live design session. Prior to the session, I highly suggest either creating a separate CET file altogether or create an alternate labeled for live design. That way you can have your original in case you need to revert or reference it. So we're going to talk a little bit about setting CET up for your success. But the first thing I want to show you is adjusting your work mode, your CET work mode, to clean up your CET workspace. This is going to help you when you're presenting to keep you from distracting your clients from all the different options and extensions in your normal workspace. And we are going to share that here. So if you go into CET and you go and you go here, I gotta move this edit work modes, that is where you're going to want to go to adjust what is seen. So for the most part, you want to keep a few tabs that you are going to use. So I would always pick custom tabs. Say you know you're only going to use one product tab. So then you would go to your manufacturer, hide all the ones that you don't need. So say you don't need that one, you would just uncheck them. I would leave on a couple of the utilities and tools. You're most likely going to need the material picker. I would keep that one. Any architectural ones, the tools, edit graphics. So keep those ones and your product, but I'd turn everything else off. The other thing that you might want to think about turning off is your price preview. So under menu buttons in visibility, there's price preview, and that turns off your CET price preview up here. See how it just disappeared? So that would keep people from asking questions about pricing if you don't want them to see it at that point. But if you do want them to see it, you can totally leave it on. You can also clean up some of this stuff. If you want to clean up your bar, you can just hide most of that. Just cleans up your top bar a little bit there. And then you have the options, of course, hiding quick bars and toolbars and anything that you don't want them to see at that point. But for the most part, you just want to clean it up a little bit. And the biggest thing you want to hide is the excessive amount of tabs that you normally have. All right, so back over here. This is the price preview, one that I was talking about. So you might want to turn that off if you have it on. Depends on your client and your situation. The other thing I want to talk about is custom tool palettes. So this can also help you clear up clutter when you're on the call, and you can keep your most used tools in the custom tool palette, and you can have that up when you need it. So you can create a custom tool palette in CET. If you go over here, say you use let's grab the dimensions because you probably use some dimensions. You see this little arrow here, you can hit that and it will send it to a custom tool. Takes a minute. And as you can see, I've got a few loaded up here for live design already. I like to have my walls, accessories, carpets and coverings, material change specifically, and dimensions up here for a custom toolbar. But you can create multiple custom ones. You can add a new tab, and then you can send more things to the different tabs. You could rename the tabs for the custom tools. I try not to load it up too much because it does take longer to open that way. But having a custom toolbar can be super helpful if you are trying to just have a few things and not flip through all your tabs and be like, oh, I need to go get this, or oh, I need to go put in a wall, things like that. So having the custom toolbar can be super helpful. All right, so this is the component tab configurator that I showed you, where you can check which ones you want to be seen and you can hide the ones that you don't need. So I'll want to keep that. Then let's talk about one thing that we forget about all the time. Update CET prior to your meeting. make sure that you open your file in the updated version as well. That will just help you reduce the numbers of issues that you can run into on the call. We want to make sure that our CET is the most up to date, so it has the least amount of bugs. And we want to make sure that our file opens and doesn't have any issues after it's open. All right, so setting yourself up for your success. Build a base plan. Having a base building in place is going to help you and your clients with visualizing the space. I highly suggest getting a PDF or an AutoCAD base plan available from them before your call. If you can't get that from them, see if you can get some images or a sample area so that you can have some idea of the space and contextualizing it so that you can draw a sample area. And then make your base plan as close to their images as possible, including finishes. That really helps give them a personal touch and helps them visualize your product in their space. While you are setting yourself up for success, utilize manufacturer resources. Find your favorite manufacturer's website, and a lot of them are going to be integrating these typicals, these applications. Find them and use them. Now that CET has a new drag and drop feature, you can pull these in from the website super easy. So let's just show you that here. So I've got CET up here, and I'm going to grab the website. And we're going to get some applications. So my favorite, of course, Haworth in here. Going to load in some applications, and you can search generally on any manufacturer's website what product you're looking for, and you can find a typical, say you like this one, you can see that there's a Canvas favorite file. You can grab that and drag and drop it into your file and then place it. And you'll want to escape the command, otherwise it will keep placing them. And then as you can see there, it brought in the whole typical, and then you can make adjustments to it as needed. So that is one way to save yourself a bunch of time when you're doing a setup session, a live design session, trying to get them some ideas. The next thing I suggest doing is if you have the time prior to the meeting to do some quick renderings so that they can have a really good idea of the space while they're doing a live design session. And you can send these renderings ahead of time for them to mark up too. Sometimes clients need a little bit extra time to process what's going on in a space, so that can be super helpful. You could also pull together renderings of the typicals that you plan to discuss, put them into a PDF, or put them in the CET file. That way you can have a way to make notes on any changes that the client might want done. A way to save yourself some time again too is a lot of times with the manufacturers, if they put together a typical and say you used it as is, you can download the JPEG and you can pull that into CET as well. So if you flip over here to 2D and you pull this up, you can drag and drop the image. So then you can put that right in your CET file. So you know what it was. That image doesn't apply to that typical, but it's the same general idea. All right. So still setting yourself up for success. Make sure that you are practicing ahead of time. If you can before the session, ask a coworker to do a full live design meeting with you. That is super helpful. For one, it gets a second set of eyes on your proposal, and it gets you used to using CET in a live design environment. And then on the same idea of planning, have a plan of where you want to start with the floor plan. Take notes and make sure you review your action plan with the client prior to leaving the call. All right, so now it's time to go live. Here are some of my favorite best practices. The first one is save a copy of your live design CET file to your desktop for the meeting. A lot of us are now using online file systems with our companies, and we don't want that to cause any issues in the middle of our sessions. I suggest renaming your file to include live in the title. That way it can differentiate from the last file you used and the working file that you've added notes to and made changes with your clients on. More best practices here. We've got knowing CET prior to the meeting. You should know the extensions that you have, free and paid. You should know some random things because you never know what your client's going to ask you. What if he wants to add a monitor to get an idea of how big of a monitor he can put on a desk? Can you add a wheelchair to figure out accessibility? Do you know where to change the material finishes for a base building? And on that note, do you know which schemes you're going to need to use? Another one that is super important to think about is avoiding mental fatigue. Keep your sessions 2 hours or less. Anything more and the decision made are just generally not the most well thought out. People get tired, their brains are not working as well as they should. They just need a break. So if your session goes more than 2 hours, it's time to take a break and set up some time to come back to it another day. When you get started with your meeting, set some meeting norms. So prior to getting into the call, it's important to talk about norms or ground rules. They don't have to be formal, just simple statements like, this is meant to be a collaborative, so feel free to stop me at any point, engage, share ideas, and give suggestions. Also tell them to ask questions, and it's okay to interrupt you through the live design session. And also let them know that it's okay if they don't get through the full floor plan today. We can always have another session, but let's discuss the areas that are most important to them today. And that can also be something that you email out to them prior to, like, hey, what are the most important things you want to focus on? So then you can have your plan in place of where you want to start with the floor plan and walk them through it. You don't want them to feel like they're being rushed into doing anything. So you want to make sure that they know that even if you can't get to everything today, you can come back for another session. Another statement that I like to tell people is, today we're going to walk through your plan in 3D and review XYZ with you. We can make changes as we go, refine the design. Is there anything specific you'd like to achieve out of today's meeting or any questions before we get started? That can be a great icebreaker and a way to get them talking about their floor plan. So in the meeting, if a change is simple, do it while you're talking about your client or talking about it with your client. If it is a custom, add a note to your file near the area of the change. That helps you remember for later, but it also allows the client to see that you are listening and they can make corrections if you capture something incorrectly. As you can see here, I added a note in black. If you want it to stick out, change it to like a bright blue or bright red so that when you come back to the file later, it's super easy to pick out. Another thing is consider having a team member join and take notes of all the changes so you can focus on the process. If you can't have a team member join, ask if the client is okay with you recording the session so that you can come back to it to take notes later if you miss something. All right. So in the meeting, update finishes while on the call. Using Scheme is generally the fastest way to do that. Each manufacturer has every catalog that has its own Scheme dialog box. I also highly recommend, if you know the products that you're going to use, preload some schemes to your sessions to save time. And if your client has standards already, make sure that you have those preloaded for them so it's super easy to turn them on when they're ready. All right, so some go live best practices. Well, in the meeting, your drawing froze. Uh-oh. We know that happens. Programs fail, things get lost. Sometimes they just want to go a little bit slower than we would like. So what do we do when this inevitably happens? First, I want you to save some programming questions for these instances. Ask them questions about the base building. Ask them questions about their needs. Make sure you're using open-ended questions to keep the conversation going. So I threw in some question examples for you. You can ask them, what is your vision for this space? How do you see this space being used? How many people do you see utilizing this space and for what activities? And if they brought anything up so far, try to get them to elaborate on spaces or things that they need or desire or things that they don't like about their existing space. You ask that question, that generally gets you a good answer and a good idea of where to go with things. Some of the biggest things to remember in the meeting is to engage in active listening. If your client brings up a concern in multiple locations, say they have a storage concern, Review each space with them on the screen to ensure their needs are being addressed for each area. And make sure you use their words and reiterate their ideas back to them. That helps them understand that you are listening, and it makes them feel heard, which will leave them with a good taste for live design and working with you as a company. So this is just some live design rendering examples for you. And you can see here, like these are just some pre-live design things that you can share with clients. Say, hey, this is an idea of the space that we're going to talk about today. We've got 4 different spaces we're going to go through. Feel free to have a look at these and plan to discuss on the call, or if you have any notes, send them ahead of time and we can work on them on the call. So it's great to just put together a few different renderings, different spaces for them, so you have an idea of a place to start. So with that, I say let's stay in touch. Like I said, I'm Monica Corrie and I work at Haworth. I'm also on LinkedIn if you want to talk to me there. And this class is available for CEU credit, so feel free to scan and get your IDCEC credits.